big. With me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball graded scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft. We'll add those players' scores up, apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series, picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. An example would be Broncos next, next Broncos, next Denver, Denver next, Denver Broncos next. You get the drift, you get the picture. Speaking of which, the team up next in this series is, you guessed it, the Denver Broncos. And it was a rough season last year for the Denver Broncos. After going 8-8 the season prior, they fell completely off the map and grid last year, going 5-11. The quarterback position has been much of the discussion in Denver, and rightfully so. They've had a very, very tough time finding a guy after Peyton Manning's departure. The defense has still been good, but not good enough to overcome the shortcomings of the offense. This is a draft, and look, I'm not a huge fan of John Elway. I've heard stories of this guy, and his demeanor strikes me as one of a guy that is probably an asshole when you meet him in person. But this isn't about his character or who he is as a person. Just off of his credentials and what he's done as a GM, you can say what you want about John Elway, but he's done a magnificent job of identifying talent, whether it be in free agency or in the draft. He's one of the best in the league at bringing in talented football players, and we've seen him help this team win a Super Bowl by fast-tracking them by going out and getting free agents. We've also seen him pluck some really good football players out of the draft, and this is what he does, okay? This is when he helps this team win. And he did it again in the 2018 NFL Draft, as we'll get to what he was able to do and the haul that he was able to bring in. But I'll tell you this much. This Denver Broncos team, if they can find a way to get some consistency, and they're hoping that Case Keenum, I don't think they think he's the long-term solution, but I think they feel like he is some sort of a bridge and a guy that can stabilize the position, even if only for the foreseeable future, the near future. I'll tell you this much. If they can get anything similar to what Case Keenum did last season in Minnesota, this team has a chance not only to return back to the postseason, but be a major player in the AFC conference, because this defense got better, especially with this first pick that we're about to talk about here in a second. And the offense, I think, they're starting to put some young, talented pieces around some of the veterans that they have. That could be a scary offense if everything goes as planned. So let's jump into the 2018 NFL Draft of the Denver Broncos and talk about why I think this team got a lot better in this offseason, starting with what arguably is the steal of the draft. I feel like the Denver Broncos may have gotten away with absolute robbery in the first round, had no business getting their hands on what I thought was the best defensive player in this entire draft, but yet that's what happened, teaming him with a guy that arguably is the best defensive player in all of football, especially from a pass rushing standpoint. In the first round, 5th overall selection, NC State edge rusher Bradley Chubb is the selection. I'm not going to break Bradley Chubb down, as I've already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Bradley Chubb and some of the other guys like Courtland Sutton as well that I've already gotten to, check out the Draft Prospects 101 series on the Louie Tee Network. Go to the playlist section, look for the 2018 Draft Prospects 101 series. Click on that, and all the videos will be displayed. But I'll tell you this much. Bradley Chubb, he's not the most natural pass rusher. I think that distinction goes to the Boston College edge rusher that was selected by the Titans in this draft. But I think he is the best, most polished pass rusher in this draft. He's the guy that you can tell studies what other pass rushers have done. He's the guy that has the most moves. He's the guy that I think is the most ready to come in and create havoc at the next level. And he's going to be the most consistent pass rusher. He's the best all-around defender in this draft. And he had no business dropping the 5 to the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos could not pass up on a talent like Bradley Chubb. To add him next to Von Miller and look at what this defense could be, if they get contributions from guys on the interior and these guys are able to do what I think they're capable of doing, look out for the Denver Broncos as a team to leap back up into the thick of things in the AFC just off the strength of their defense. The secondary may be a bit of a question mark with some of the younger guys. No more Keep to lead. We'll see how the secondary goes. You still got some young corners and some guys that are veterans that you trust out there. But if you can get pressure on the quarterback, you negate any questions that you may have in the secondary, and you may have one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. If Bradley Chubb is what we think he is, and I don't think we're wrong about this guy, if he stays healthy, if Von Miller stays healthy, I think you may have what you had when you had DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller coming off the edges in 14 and 15. But nonetheless, in the first round, 5th overall pick, NC State edge rusher Bradley Chubb, for me, is...
Hits one high! Hits it deep! It is out of here!
So we move on to the Broncos' second pick in this draft. And again, you get really good quality and value in the second round. 40th overall selection, wide receiver out of SMU, Courtland Sutton is the selection. Much like Bradley Chubb, not going to break Courtland Sutton down again because I've already done so. Again, check the Draft Prospects 101 playlist on the Louie Tee Network. But once again, I think you got really good value here. This was a guy that was talked up as a first-round pick for much of the process. And as we got closer and closer to draft day, his name started to cool a bit. But nonetheless, in a draft that wasn't top-heavy with talent, but really quality in terms of the amount of guys in this draft, he was one of the better wide receiver prospects and one of the few that actually offered you a little bit of size and combination of speed. There aren't many guys in this draft that are big but also can run, and so he was one of the few that gave you that height, weight, speed combination. And he's a guy that can go up and get the football. And the Broncos last year were decimated by injuries at the receiver position. It was bad at times. And with your two best receivers pretty much banged up the entire season between Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, you really had nothing out there to show for the receiver position. And those guys were being paid a lot of money. And at some point, you're going to have to move on from one or both of those guys. And I thought it was going to be this offseason. I thought with the drafting of a Courtland Sutton, one of those guys, and I thought with them going out and getting size, that meant a guy like Demaryius Thomas might be the odd man out. But looks like they're going to ride with those two receivers, and they're going to add Sutton to the mix. You add another receiver in later in the draft that I think is going to be a difference maker, and you could have the makings of the future 1-2 punch at the receiver position with this receiver and the one that you took later on in the draft, and we'll get to him when he comes. But nonetheless, this is a nice pickup. He gets to learn from a really crafty receiver that has a similar skill set to him. Thomas a little bit faster than Sutton, but again, similar size, similar weight, similar skill set. He'll get to learn the ropes from a guy that has done it at a very high level in this league for a good amount of time. So I think it's a great selection, and there's a bridge here to allow this guy to learn, not have to have too much pressure put on him right away to perform, and see how it's done at a high level. And then maybe he can come in and help and give you a little bit of production in his rookie season to help complement what you have as a 1-2 punch in Sanders and Thomas. But nonetheless, love this selection. Love what he brings to the table from the ability to go up and high point the football, big body some of these smaller corners and make plays. He's going to get some OPIs. He's going to push off. He's not a guy that's going to create a ton of separation running routes, but this is a guy that you can throw it up to in some 50-50 situations, have him go up and get the football. And that's something you've lacked in Denver, especially when Demaryius Thomas isn't at his best. And this is a guy that can come in and help right away. And so in the second round, 40th overall selection, wide receiver out of SMU, Courtland Sutton for me is As we move right along to the next selection in this Broncos draft, one that was 10 players deep, we go to the third round, 71st overall selection. Running back out of Oregon, Royce Freeman is the selection. So here was a guy that I wasn't too high on throughout the process, and I've had a lot of people telling me Royce Freeman, and I kind of just pushed him back to the back of the running back line. I really didn't give him a lot of play, didn't really pay too much attention to him because he was coming off of a lackluster 2016 season in which he was coming off of an injury-filled season. And so I thought, Royce Freeman early on in his Oregon career was dynamic and a guy that I thought stood out. But of late, not too impressive. And Oregon themselves has fallen on hard times. And maybe that had a little bit to do with my jaded opinion of Royce Freeman. But I'm here to tell you, after turning on the tape and watching this guy closely, he looks more like the 2014, 2015 back that we saw and less like the 2016 guy that fell off the table. And so this guy was really impressive. I'm going to just be really frank with you. I was really impressed with what I saw out of Royce Freeman. And I think he's the perfect quintessential Denver Broncos bowling back type of running back. And that's what they need in Denver. And I think he's a perfect fit in Denver. And I love this selection. And I think he's a guy that is going to come in and be a tremendous upgrade over a guy like C.J. Anderson, who's been toting the rock for you over the last 3 or 4 years. So let's get into some of his measurables first. You're looking at a guy that's 6 feet, 229, so that's really good size for an NFL running back. 17 reps of 2 1/4, 34-inch vertical, which shows you a little bit of the explosion that this guy has at 230 pounds, essentially. 4.54 40, so the guy can run. And so this is the combination of what you're looking for out of a Denver Broncos running back. And it's the type of running back the Broncos have had for quite some time. And this guy's going to come in and fill that void. I think that you were hoping you were going to get out of Devontae Booker, but he just never has been able to stay healthy nor progress at the rate that you were looking for. Maybe Devontae Booker's role really is more so as a receiving back on third downs. Maybe that's what you may be able to get out of him. Maybe he's not an every down rock toter, but Royce Freeman has proven over the life of his Oregon career that that's exactly what he is. Nonetheless, you go to his quickness. I put down in my notes, nice in and out jump cut versus UW. This guy has the ability to have these little quick, nimble feet. I didn't expect that out of him. Again, for a bigger back that's 230 pounds, I wasn't expecting as quick a feet as I got out of Royce Freeman. Those quick feet allow him to make quick jump cuts and decisive cuts that allow him to get extra yardage and set blocks up. And so I think that there's a little something extra here that I wasn't expecting. Again, when I turned on the tape, I didn't think much of this guy. And when I left after watching him, I had a whole different perspective of what Royce Freeman brought to the table. Acceleration, I said for a plus-size back, shows a little burst versus Stanford on a 56-yard run. This guy has a little juice to him. He's not going to outrun someone with speed and an angle, but what he will do is he'll take advantage of a guy that may underestimate his speed. He'll take advantage of a guy that takes a poor angle and outrun him or make him chase him an extra 15, 20 yards to knock him out of bounds. He'll be a guy that will hit a ton of doubles, the occasional single or triple, and if you allow him to, he'll bust a home run on you, okay? But he's got the ability to do that. So, and again, I wasn't expecting that. And the guy that I saw in 2016 wasn't hitting a ton of home runs. This guy here is able to do that. So if you're getting the healthy version of Royce Freeman, which I would assume you are, if he's able to stay healthy, you're getting a guy that can run a little bit for his size. Agility, I talked about his quick feet already, so I don't need to reiterate that. But this is a guy with really, really good feet. And like I said, they allow him in the hole to dance, make guys miss, and create extra yardage in some tight quarter situations. His vision, really good vision. A guy that I think sets up runs, sets up blocks, and then creates cutback lanes, and he's able to take advantage of them because he's able to see them before they happen. Nice vision on a run versus Washington State in a game. And I watched him in 4 games versus Washington, Stanford, Washington State, and Arizona, all in 2017. Make you miss, I was really pleasantly surprised in this particular category. A good stutter stick on a cutback versus Stanford out in space to get into the end zone. Again, not expecting that from a 230-pound back. I'm just not. So that was beautiful to see. And again, I really slept on Royce Freeman. I really needed to apologize to him, and I did, because I was disrespectful. This guy is extremely talented, and you got a really good running back here in the 3rd round. Contact balance, yards after contact, he's outstanding after contact. That's how he generates a lot of extra yardage. He's a guy that is able to withstand a little bit of contact, keep his balance, and get yards after contact. Toughness and durability. He's been a soldier for Oregon. A lot of carries, a lot of touches over the life of his career. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he's a guy that pretty much was in the lineup almost every single week. Awareness in terms of him in the backfield as a blocker and a receiver. Gets into his routes on checkdowns quickly on 3rd and 4 to move the sticks versus Stanford. So he's a guy that understands, okay, we've got 6-man protection, tight end, and I'm in, and tight end ends up going out on a route. I'm in as the 6th man. They only rush 4. I don't need to stay in. Let me get out and get into the route and become an extra eligible for my quarterback. And he was able to catch the football and move the sticks on a 3rd and 4 versus Stanford. Snap volume, this guy pretty much took all the carries at Stanford over his 4-year run. So, at Oregon. He pretty much took all the carries. So, he was the workhorse at Oregon. And so, there's no question that this guy can carry the load if you need him to. So, but with the amount of backs that you have in Denver, I don't think that needs to be the case. I don't think he needs to have 27 carries in any given game. I mean, if he's got it going, he's got it going. But you can spread it around and really extend the life of this man's career, because he's had a rough go of it in college. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But patience, I think there's enough patience here. Sometimes he can be a little hasty to the hole, but for the most part, I think there's enough patience here that he allows blocks to develop, set things up. I put down in my notes, really good patience versus Arizona on a run where he was able to set up blockers and then explode. And that's what you want, patience to the hole, explode through the hole. And that's what you get with Royce Freeman at times. And so I think his patience is more than good enough for him to get the job done. And then leg drive, he's got extremely good leg drive. Like I said, he powers through contact. So that's what you get when you get a big back. That's what you're hoping to get. That's what you should expect when you get a big back, a guy that's going to have good leg drive, power through arm tackles, and show you the ability to get yards after contact, which Royce Freeman does quite frequently. You go from his pros to some of his cons. We start with his receiving ability. He's not a big threat to catch it out of the backfield. I think he can catch the football, but he's not a guy that you want to throw it to very often. He's not a guy that you have to take off the field on 3rd downs necessarily. But again, I think you may be able to find someone else that can do the things that you're looking for from a 3rd down back, a little bit better than Royce Freeman can. Pass protection, catch the football. You've got to have someone on that roster between D'Angelo Henderson, obviously Freeman himself, the aforementioned Devontae Booker. Someone has to be able to do it better than Royce Freeman can. So I we'll see what happens, but I think he can catch it. I just wouldn't ask him to do so necessarily. And then pass pro, for him to be a 230-pound back, I just like to see him be a little bit more physical. I don't think he's as physical as you would expect from a guy his size. I'll give you a couple of examples. I put down in my notes, he's inconsistent as a pass protector. Blown up in pass pro versus Washington State by a defender that might have had him by maybe 10 pounds, if that. But nonetheless, you're 230 pounds. I expect you to stand your ground. And I didn't see it from him on a consistent basis. But then has excellent pass pro the very next set of downs, only to get up to give up a sack later in the game. So that's the inconsistency I'm talking about. Gets blown up on pass pro. It makes the quarterback uncomfortable on one snap. Then the next set of downs is able to stonewall a guy, give the quarterback the time he needs to get rid of the football. Then later on in the game, gives up a sack. And so that's the inconsistency that I'm talking about. But nonetheless, not to say that he can't get better at it, but right now he's not. And we know that's generally how it goes with young backs coming into the league. The one thing that they lack is the ability to come in and be a protector on third downs. That's something that they have to learn. And Royce Freeman is no different, essentially, is what I'm getting at. Versatility, because of that lack of versatility, because he doesn't play special teams, because he's not a guy that's going to come in and catch it a ton or be a great pass protector initially, there's not a lot of versatility here. So that's something that I dinged him on there. He right now is strictly a first and second down back, essentially, but we'll see. He may be able to evolve into an all three down type of running back. Carry and ball security, that's something he struggled with at Oregon. 9 career fumbles. That is a ton. 4 of them lost. 2 fumbles in 2017. 1 of them lost. So he did not rectify the problem. This isn't he had some issues early on in his career with security of the football. He's still struggling with that to this day. So that's something he's going to have to clean up. The easiest way to find yourself in a coach's doghouse as a back is to fumble the football and put it down on the carpet. And so you look at some of the questions that people had about him coming into this draft and why he was a third-round selection. Dealt with nagging injuries in 2016, as I mentioned before. I think he's back to form, and we saw a little bit more of that Royce Freeman in 2017 than we did in 2016. But the real question is he an old 22 years old? Is he an old 22-year-old back? And what I mean by old is there a lot of tread off of these tires? This man had a ton of carries at Oregon. He was the workhorse. He was a guy that was averaging around 250 touches a season at Oregon. It's a lot of touches. You're talking about probably well over 1,000 career touches while at Oregon. That's a lot of touches for a running back coming into the league in a day and age where running backs generally share the workload, not only in college but at the next level at the NFL. To see a guy get it 250 times per, that's a lot of touches. And people are wondering, how much are you really going to get out of Royce Freeman because of all of the touches and all of the hits that he sustained at the collegiate level? Is he an old 22-year-old back? We're going to find out. We're going to see. He's still a young guy now. The question is, will those accumulation of hits take its toll? And instead of him having an 8-year career, will he only have a 4-year career? We'll see. But in any event, the guy you're getting in the third round, I think, is going to come in and really help you right off the bat. Gives you something that you lacked at the running back position. I think that's a little bit of explosiveness. C.J. Anderson was nice, but he lacked the ability to really make guys miss out in space. And he lacked that ability to take a single, turn it into a double, take a double, turn it into a triple. And I think that's what Royce Freeman brings to the table. In the third round, 71st pick overall, running back out of Oregon, Royce Freeman, for me, is a So we stay in the third round, Broncos, with a second third-round selection, this time 99th overall, cornerback out of Boston College. Isaac Yiadom is the selection. So you lose Aqib Talib in free agency, and you're looking for a guy to come in and fill that void. Here's a long, rangy corner in the mold of Aqib Talib. Obviously, Aqib Talib, a seasoned veteran when you got him in Denver, knew the ropes, knew how to play guys. But here's a similar stature guy, similar mindset of wanting to get in the face of a receiver and be physical at the line of scrimmage, a guy that will come up and tackle, not afraid to mix it up. And a guy with a little bit of swag, as you can see in the art behind me. The guy's dancing. He's got a little bit of swag. He's not ripping off chains, all right? He's not that guy, okay? He's not a habitual chain snatcher, but this is a guy that I think could come in and fill that void for you. And so 6'1", 190 out of Boston College, 8 reps of 2 1/4, so not the strongest guy in the world, but 32-inch arms, so he's long at 6'1", 4'5", 240, so he can run a little bit with that size. So someone said that a comp for him was Bashaud Breeland, and I think it's a beautiful comp. I think it's a perfect comp because when I watch him, I see a lot of similarities in the game of Bashaud Breeland. And Breeland is a guy that I think is, up until this point, had a really solid NFL career. And I think wherever he lands, as he's a free agent right now, I think he's going to continue to blossom as an NFL corner. And I think Isaac Yiadom has a chance to do similar things to what Bashaud Breeland has done in this league. And if you can get that kind of play out of Isaac Yiadom, you got to feel good about this third-round selection. Let's jump into his pros, measurables at 6'1", $190. That's really solid size. You'd like him to put on a few pounds, and he will. He'll give it a little bit bigger, and you hope that that doesn't affect his quickness nor speed. But he's going to get a little bit bigger once he gets into the NFL and the Broncos weight training program. But you can't teach 6'1", you can't teach 32-inch arms. Either you have that or you don't. He does, so you've got to respect that and like that out of your item. Speed, like I mentioned before, 4.52. For that kind of body type, you'll take that because, again, you don't have to be the fastest guy in the world when you've got long arms and you are a longer corner. So that helps you make up for maybe that half a step that you're lacking with speed. You make it up with length, and he's able to do that. And 4.52 isn't anything to bat your eye at, but obviously with the guys in this league running 4.4s that are 6'3", you want longer corners and you want guys that can run. He can give you a little bit of both. And in this particular draft, we saw a crop of receivers come out that wasn't really fast. So a guy like Isaac Yiadom will be able to cover those guys for the most part. Athleticism, I think he's a really solid athlete. Similar to Bashaud Breeland. Again, that's the comp for him, and I think it's a gorgeous comp. He's a guy that's not going to blow you away with any one attribute, but he's feisty. He's a gamer. He wants the challenge of the guy in front of him. He wants to come up and play press man-to-man, which I think he excels at. And so you got to like that. And a guy, even though he knows he's got some physical limitations, he's not afraid to come up and challenge. And so he's got enough athleticism to hang with some of the guys that may be a little shiftier, a little faster than he is. He's still got enough athleticism to hang in there, give himself a chance to compete. Acceleration, it's good enough. I saw guys run by him on tape. Again, 4.52. And he's a guy that wants to come in your face, delete the airspace, and challenge you at the line of scrimmage. And when you do that, you do run the risk of having guys be able to run by you. And I saw that on tape a couple of times. But he's got enough acceleration that if a guy is to get a step on him, if the football is underthrown just slightly, he can get back into the play. His agility and change direction, it's solid. It's not the greatest. It almost made it as a negative, but it just made it as a positive. But I put down he lacks click and close agility. All that means is he lacks the ability to stick his foot in the ground and break on the football. He's not one of those guys that sees it, sticks his foot in the ground, and breaks on the football, and he's there in a hurry. He's a guy that's got to see it, anticipate it really, and make a move before the football is thrown. Anticipation and awareness. He's got solid anticipation and awareness. He's a guy that will occasionally look for the football. Speaking of which, LLCer, he isn't what I look for as an LLCer. And what LLC is, for those of you who aren't familiar, look, locate, and contest. As a cornerback, you have to look, locate, and contest if you want to stay away from pass interference, if you want to stay away from being labeled as a guy that face guards. If you want to give yourself a chance to make plays on the football, you need to look back first and foremost. You need to locate the football after looking back, and then contest. Make a play on the football. Knock it away or look to pick it off. But you can't make a play on the football if you don't look and locate football. You're only going to just put your arms up and hope you get lucky. And he's one of those guys that he'll put his hands up and he won't look back. And I put down in my notes, he'll occasionally look, but his first inclination is to contest without looking nor locating. And that's a little frustrating because there are times where he's in a position to make a play on the football. If he just turns around and finds the football, he can make a play on it. But guys that lack top-end speed tend to panic when the football's in the air and they're not in the hip pocket, when they're not hip to hip, when they're not in phase with the receiver. They tend to panic and they don't want to take that split second to look back, fearing that the ball will pass them by and they'll give up a reception. So what they do is they just put their hands up. They play off the receiver. They look to see when the receiver is giving the tell of the football being near, and then they put their hands up and they look to rake, strip, and try to jar the football loose. But he's one of those guys that I think he gives himself a chance to be in the play and make plays on the football if he just look. But he just isn't doing that at this very moment. Ball skills, 3 career INTs, 21 pass breakups. So you're looking at a 7-to-1 ratio in terms of pass breakups to interceptions. That's solid. You'd like that to be down a little bit more. You don't want a guy that's knocking away. Look, knockaways are good on first and second down, and even better on third down, get you off the field. You know what's better than a knockaway, though? An interception. You know what flips the field faster than a punt? An interception. And so you like to see guys take the football away. But his ball skills, to me, I got him down as a negative. I don't think he's the guy that's going to come in like a Aqib Talib and take it away and make teams pay for throwing at him on a consistent basis. Tackling, willingness to tackle. This is a guy that has the mindset of a safety at the cornerback position, which you love. Blew up a receiver in cover 2 against Clemson, just absolutely destroyed him. That's what you're looking for. You know, a guy that wants to come up and be physical in a run support. Put on a tackling clinic, I put in my notes, versus Clemson. 8 tackles in that ball game. He was everywhere. You want to see a guy at the cornerback position be fearless in run support and come up and tackle his ass off. Turn on Isaac Yiadom's Clemson tape. You'll watch a guy just absolutely put on a clinic on how to go up and tackle as a cornerback. I thought he was exceptional in that game. Man-to-man coverage, I thought he was outstanding in man-to-man coverage. I think this is where he excels, and this is what the Broncos essentially like to do. And so I think this is why this is a great fit for them and what they like to do as a defense. When you want to be aggressive, you want guys that can play press man-to-man and give your pass rushers a chance to get there. And this is a guy that I think will be able to do that for you. A guy down in my notes, loves to press and be aggressive versus Iowa, versus Virginia Tech. Nice knockaway and interception in that game versus Virginia Tech. So if you want to see this guy making some plays on the football, turn on the Vitek tape. Also put down beautiful contest in end zone on a fade jump ball versus Clemson. So you get to see him in his full true element when he's in man-to-man coverage, especially when he's uptight in press man-to-man coverage. In zone coverage, I don't love him as much in zone. I told you he's not click and close in terms of his agility and ability to close in on the football. So from that standpoint, he gives up a lot of space. Not the quickest guy in the world to react. So you get a lot of easy underneath completions a lot of times in front of him in zone when he's playing off and soft. So I prefer him in man coverage. And that's how I like my Isaac Yiadom. Versatility. This is a guy that can give you some help on special teams right away. Also can play in a slot a little bit, as I saw him do that on tape. And also, I think he's more a boundary corner, though. And so he's solid in terms of versatility. Pretty much the only knock I have on this guy is the fact that I want to see him make more plays on the football. Again, be more of an LLCer. To me, that's more of an innate thing. You generally don't learn to look back. Either you do and you trust yourself to look back, or you don't. But I think that affects his ball skills. And that's really my biggest knock on him, is him being an LLCer and him lacking true ball skills. But when he looks, the guy can make plays like he did against Virginia Tech. So in any event, I like this pick. I think he's a guy that's going to come in and help you right away. And I think he's a guy that's going to be a good replacement for Aqib Talib's departure in Denver. 3rd round, 99th selection overall. Boston College cornerback Isaac Yiadom for me is. So you move on to the next selection, 4th round, 106th overall selection. Linebacker out of Iowa, Josey Jewell is the pick. And when you look at Josey Jewell and what he brings to the table, he's one of those quintessential, give it everything you got, get the most out of your talents type of guy. I'm not going to floor you nor wow you with any one trait other than his hustle, other than his work ethic and his ability to just be around the football. And there's something to be said about a guy that just is around the action all the time. Good things happen to those who find their way around the football, and Josey Jewell is just one of those guys. And you turn on the tape, he's just always around the action. 6'1", 234 pounds, 4.68 40. He ran a 4.82 at the combine. That was a really disappointing time that I thought was going to really plummet his stock. He turns around, runs a 4.68, which is probably closer to what you see on tape with him at his pro day. 18 reps of 2 1/4, so solid there. And he's just a stat sheet stuffer, man. 6 career interceptions, 9 career sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 26 pass breakups, 28 tackles for loss, and 3 straight years of 100 or more tackles. The guy just is a production machine. And so that's what you're looking for him to bring to the table in Denver, is just a guy that is around the football, that is able to just be a steady, calming influence in the middle of this Broncos defense. Talked about his measurables and his speed already. Both are solid. None of them wow you. His athleticism, acceleration, and redirect, again, none of them are going to knock your socks off. None of these are going to make you say, wow, he's not that type of guy. Where he's going to be a big-time player for you is in the consistency department. Not an uber athlete, not going to make a ton of eye-popping plays. Don't even know if you want this guy on the field or not in obvious passing situations. But he's so savvy that maybe he's able to find a way to stay on the field on third downs. But you're looking at a first and second down linebacker here in Josey Jewell. And again, when put into the proper situations, I think he might even be able to help you in some third down passing situations. But nonetheless, awareness. This is where this guy, to me, separates himself from a lot of inside linebackers in this draft. And this is why you draft this guy here in the 4th round, is his awareness. He studies film. You can tell this guy is in tune to what's going on the football field. He knows his opponent. He studied them intensely throughout the course of the week, and he knows what's happening. He's the type of guy that's calling out what the opposition is doing pre-snap. He sees a shift, he sees a formation, and he saw many times on tape, and he's calling out exactly what's to come. These are the types of players that gets everyone lined up, puts everybody in the right position, and helps other guys make plays. I put down in my notes, sees field well in coverage drops. Again, if you put this guy in the right situations to succeed, he may be able to play all 3 downs for you. I don't want to see this guy in man-to-man coverage. But even when I saw him in man-to-man coverage versus Saquon Barkley in a critical situation late in the ball game, he made an excellent tackle on an out route by Saquon Barkley, ran him down and got him on a shoestring tackle. Really impressive for a guy that is a 4.68 guy running against a legit 4.4 flat running back that we know can accelerate and run away from defenders. So he sees the field well in coverage drops. Also put in my notes, gets to McSorley on read option down by the end zone. And that's all anticipation. Sees it, reads it, and beats him to the spot. We know Mitch McSorley is probably faster than Josey Jewell. But anticipation, seeing it before it happens, beating him to a spot, and getting to McSorley and stopping him from getting into the end zone. Ship, to be able to slip and shed blockers is another one of his really good traits. He's a guy that'll take on blocks and then discard them, get to the ball carrier. That is a really good trait to have in this league. Guys who slip blocks sometimes will go over top or underneath a block and take themselves out of the play and create a gaping hole on the second level, which you can't afford as a linebacker a lot of times. You're one of those lines of defenses where if you don't do your job, if you don't correctly fill a gap, a huge run is coming, and you're putting a lot of pressure on your secondary to make tackles. He's a guy that's going to fill his gap, take on blockers, and then take it a step further and get off of the block to get to the ball carrier. So he's exceptional at taking on blocks. His tackling ability is uncanny. I told you the guy has had over 100 tackles in 3 consecutive years while at Iowa. Man-to-man coverage, he's not great, but you can do a lot worse than Josey Jewell. That's for certain. I put down in my notes, and I talked about this already. I referenced this. Late game one-on-one versus Barkley against Penn State. I thought it was an exceptional play, one that shocked the hell out of me. I didn't expect him to be able to make that tackle. Zone coverage ability, I put down in my notes. Knockaway versus Wisconsin down by the end zone. And then he had an interception versus Penn State, just right place, right time. And again, that's just knowing what you're supposed to be doing and then just being in the right place at the right time. So I think, like I said, if put in the right situations, this is a guy that may be able to stay on the field all 3 downs. And then his range, it's limited. Okay, you're not getting a guy with unlimited range that can sideline to sideline range you. But again, if he takes good angles, which he's been known to do, and he is able to anticipate, he's a guy that can get to where he needs to be in enough time to cut off a running back from turning the corner and making a big play. The only knock I have on this guy is him as a blitzer. I don't think he's a supremely gifted blitzer. I don't think he times them up exceptionally well. He has 9 sacks in 4 years. So you're not talking about a guy that's overly aggressive as a blitzer in terms of being able to hit home. But again, with this type of pass rush that you have in Denver now with Miller and Chubb, that's going to open up opportunities for a lot of guys, and maybe Josey Jewell is one of those guys that is able to get free and get to the quarterback. We will see. But in the 4th round, 106th overall, linebacker out of Iowa, Josey Jewell, for me, is a really solid pickup there. I think this next pick in the 4th round is an even better one. 113th overall, wide receiver out of Penn State. DaeSean Hamilton is the selection. This one feels like a little bit of a steal. And, you know, we'll only be able to tell that in time, but this one feels like a bit of a steal. One of those guys that when his contract is up, you're probably going to have to pay money to, maybe more than you want to. And much like the guy you got on your team right now in Emmanuel Sanders, you may not be able to pay. Similar to what Pittsburgh endured with him. His contract came up. They got more than they bargained for out of Emmanuel Sanders. He moved on. The rest is history. DaeSean Hamilton strikes me as one of those guys that you draft in the 4th round and you get 1st to 2nd round production out of, and he's going to end up commanding a bigger payday than maybe you want to give him. And we'll see, man. This guy has a lot of talent, and I think you might have stole one here in the 4th round. 6'1", 203 pounds, great size at the receiver position there. Reminds me so much of a guy that got drafted in a similar position last year out of Tampa Bay in Chris Godwin, one of his teammates, while at Penn State. Similar measurables, similar speed, and similar abilities to make plays on the football. 34-inch vert, so he can go up and climb the ladder a little bit. 4 straight seasons of over 500 yards or more receiving. 18 receiving touchdowns over the life of his career. Never missed a game in 4 years, so you're getting a relatively durable guy at the receiver position. Measurables is the first pro, and you got to like a guy that comes in already with an NFL-ready body at 6'1", 203 pounds. Got to love that right off the bat. His hands, he's got good hands. You'll get some drops out of him from, a lack of concentration standpoint. Doesn't make a ton of bad ball catches is what I put in my notes. There are a lot of times where football's underthrown, football's made, throw behind him, football's thrown a little high. Those are the ones that he doesn't come down with. And if you want to, if you're looking for a big criticism of him and him taking the next step, that's the next step for him, because I think he's an exceptional route runner. I think he does a really good job of putting himself in positions to make plays. I think where he can take that next step is catching some footballs and helping the quarterback out on some balls that aren't thrown in the best of spots. Ball that's low that you got to go dig out, I need you to come down with that one. One that's a little high, but within your reach, I need you to go and get that. Highly contested behind you, I need you to find a way to get that football. And at Penn State, he didn't do that a ton. Speed, 4.52, he can run, and so he's going to be able to help you in that department. Quickness, suddenness, he's a double and triple stick guy. That's what I put in my notes. And all that means is when he gets to the stem of a route or when he's coming off the line of scrimmage, he's one of those guys that gives you, where he sticks his foot in the ground aggressively to give you a fake one way or the other. That's the type of moves that gives a defensive back pause. When you're a guy that is a speed cut guy and you just round and roll into routes, defenders love that because you don't give them deception. You don't make them think, is he going outside? Is he breaking inside? What is he doing? When you're a double or a triple stick guy, and really you don't necessarily need to triple stick. Sometimes that's a little too excessive and it takes too long. But if you're a double stick guy and you can stick your foot in the ground and give a guy a shoulder head fake combination with that double triple stick, that gives a defensive back pause. That makes them think inside, outside, what is he going to do here? And now you control the action, not the defensive back. Hard for him to jump a route and run a route for you when he doesn't know where you're going. You know where you're going as a receiver, so you have the ability to really make a DB pause. Make a DB think for a second. DBs don't want to think. They want to play freely. That's how you make plays. When guys have the quickness and the suddenness of a DaeSean Hamilton, it really makes defensive backs pause and have to think. And that's how you win as a receiver. Acceleration has good enough. He doesn't have top-end acceleration, but it's good enough. Route running ability, again, that's one of his best traits. His ability to separate just off of pure route running. It's what's going to win him the day at the next level. Physicality, toughness, run after the catch, all solid traits here with DaeSean Hamilton. None of them are going to wow you per se, but all of them are solid nonetheless. Leaping ability and high pointing the football. I've got a couple of instances here in my notes. You got a touchdown versus Ohio State where he goes up and gets the football in the corner on a nice fade ball. Also has a catch versus Michigan where he goes and leaps up, climbs the ladder on a deep ball towards the sideline on like a corner route. Then he has versus Indiana 2 catches versus Indiana where he goes up and high points the football. One on a touchdown and then another one on a sideline grab between 2 defenders. So this guy will go up, use that 34-inch vert, and go get the football at its highest point. And that's what you've got to love about a guy with a 6'1 frame and a 34-inch vert. Catch radius, like I just told you, he'll go up and get the football. But in bad ball situations where it may be a little taste higher than he's looking for it to be, he's not a guy that's going to extend out of his frame. Got football a little bit further behind him. He's going in one direction, ball a little bit behind him. He's got to stop, plant, and maybe jump backwards. That's where the catch radius, you'd like to see it come into play a little bit better, and it just doesn't. Ball tracking versus Michigan, over-the-shoulder catch. So he's a guy that can go get the football over his shoulder and make catches. He competes as a blocker. Not going to knock your socks off with his blocking ability, but he will compete. He's not one of those guys that's just not a participant as a blocker. He'll get in there and mix it up, but he's not a guy that's going to win a ton of situations if the guy across from him isn't looking to buddy with him and actually looking to get in and make a tackle, he's not going to be a guy that's going to stop them from making a tackle. Dependability and clutchness. I put down in my notes, 4th and 1 grab versus Indiana. 4th and 1 is huge. 3rd down catch late versus Washington in the bowl game when Washington was making a hard charge late in that game to try to get the football back and maybe steal this one that Penn State had control of for much of this game. He makes a huge 3rd down grab that pretty much put that football game on ice. So you love that dependability and clutchness that in some crucial situations, I can go to you and know you're going to come through and make a play for me. Versatility, he can play in the slot or out wide as a boundary wide receiver. So it gives you a little bit of versatility there. Sideline awareness, he knows where he is on the football field, able to get his feet in bounds. And production, he was a guy that had steady production, as I mentioned at the top of his breakdown, over 500 yards in all 4 seasons at Penn State. You could argue that one of his best seasons was his first season on campus at Happy Valley. And so this is a guy that over the life of his career, even when other guys came in, maybe stole a little bit of his touches in some of the spotlight, like a Chris Godwin or Saquon Barkley's emergence as a receiver and a pass catcher, this guy was always able to get his and make plays. And that's the kind of guy that you need on your football team when you've already got an Emmanuel Sanders and a Demaryius Thomas, and you've got a guy that you drafted in the 2nd round in a Courtland Sutton. You need a guy that's a chameleon, that can shift and shape his way and blend into an offense and just do whatever is asked of him. And that's what you're getting here in DaeSean Hamilton. And I'm going to tell you right now, you may have gotten yourself a steal here in the 4th round. You went from having 2 receivers and not much behind them to now you've got a full deck at the receiver position. You've got to love what you have. Even if it's only for 1 year, I don't see you having all 4 of these guys return next season. But even if only for a year, you've got to love what you have at the receiver position. And again, DaeSean Hamilton going to get to learn from a guy that I think is one of the best route runners in all of football, in Emmanuel Sanders. He's going to come in and be able to learn from one of the best in Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. Got to love this situation for these young receivers here in Denver. In the 4th round, 113th overall selection, wide receiver out of Penn State. DaeSean Hamilton, for me, is here's another guy that I really, really like, and I think because of a pre-draft injury, you may have gotten a steal on again here in the 5th round, 156th overall selection. Tight end out of Wisconsin, Troy Fumagalli is the selection. Here's a guy that I really, really like in Troy Fumagalli, 6'5", 247, 14 reps of 225. Just a guy that I think was extremely consistent at Wisconsin. One of the best pass catchers in this particular draft. I think the reason he's even sitting here in the 5th round is because of a sports hernia injury that didn't allow him to really work out in all of the post-season workouts and all-star games. I mean, if this guy were able to work out and show you what he truly was capable of, I don't think he's here in the 5th round for you to select. I think he might have been gone in the 3rd or the 4th round. But because of the injury, you didn't get to put a time to his speed. I don't think he's going to knock your socks off with this ability to run. And I'll give you what I have in my notes for speed from this guy. But he couldn't run a 40. And so you weren't able to see this guy really work out. But the tape speaks for itself. If you really want to see what this guy is really made of and what he can bring to the table, turn on the tape from 2016 in the bowl game versus Western Michigan, where I thought he was arguably the best player on the field from either team. He was that good. And keep in mind, future first-round pick, Corey Davis was on that football field. And I think Troy Fumagalli was the guy that stole the show in that game, and I thought he was the best player on the field in that game. So if you're looking, watch him against LSU. You want to see him against high-level talent. This guy made plays against high-level talent athletes that are going to play at the next level against LSU in 2016. So this is a guy that can play. He can make plays, and so he dealt with an injury that he had to have surgery on, and 7 career touchdowns. That doesn't knock you away. And over 500 yards receiving in each of the last 2 seasons. So, again, for a guy coming from a run-dominant offense in Wisconsin to have over 500 yards receiving in both of the last 2 seasons, that's exceptional. And he's doing all of this while missing an index finger on his left hand, which was a birth defect. You can't tell this guy has some of the best hands at the tight end position in this draft. So, go to his measurables, like I mentioned before. 6'5", 247. You'd like to see him put on a few pounds to be a little bit more stout in the run game, but he's already giving you a little something in the run game as a run blocker, which is more than you can say for some of these tight ends in this draft. Speed. Let's talk about his speed because he wasn't able to run, so you can't really put a time to what he's showing you on tape. But here's what I put down in my notes. On the high end, as fast as I think he can run, 4.68. On the low end, I've got him as a 4.82 guy. But I put most likely what his speed is probably right around 4.76, which if you look at this draft and you look at some of the top tier tight ends, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get guys that run about a 4.76. And you look at some of the guys that were plucked out of this draft early on, 4.76, right around there. That's what Zach Ertz ran when he was drafted. So I think that's right around where this guy is. Pass catching ability, like I said, he's one of the best in this draft class, hands down. Western Michigan had a one-hand grab, and then he had a pirouette grab in that same game. He was dominant in that game versus Western Michigan in 2016 in that bowl game. Just outstanding. You watch him against LSU, and he's making plays against that LSU defense. This is a guy that has the ability to really make plays. Quickness, suddenness, he's not going to, scare NFL defenses with his quickness and suddenness. But he's got enough of it to shake free. He's got enough of it to run out and up and shake a linebacker and get up the field, up the seam, and threaten the safety. He's got enough of it. Route running ability, nice lean at the stem of his route. What guys who are really good at running routes do, especially when you aren't the fastest guy in the world, is you learn the little subtleties and nuances of route running. And I always hark back to Jason Witten. He's always my poster child for a guy that just lacked athleticism, but yet always found a way to get open. And Jason Witten was the master of the subtle push-off, the little elbow at the stem of a route, but didn't ever really extend to the point where you had to throw the flag. But even more so, leaning into a defender, leaning on a guy, and then pushing off ever so slightly, because when you lean on a guy, he's thinking you're going inside. If you're running, let's say you're running an out-breaking route. You want to run to the corner. So what you do is you lean on a guy to the post because he's thinking in his head, you're just trying to get to the post as fast as possible. So you lean toward the inside only to stick your foot in the ground, break to the outside, and now all of his weight was shifted to the inside. Now he's got to try to transfer weight back to the outside to go with you. Now you've got a yard and a half, 2 yards of separation for the football to be delivered to you. And that's what Troy Fumagalli does. At the stem of a route, he'll lean on a defender only to come back to the football, only to break to the outside, only to break to the inside to create that separation on a seam ball. Lean outside, go inside. Now the seam ball, you've got space to catch it. He's really good at that, and I think that's going to serve him well at the next level. Catch radius, again, the Western Michigan game gives you all you need to see from a catch radius standpoint of what this guy can do when the football isn't in the most ideal situation and he has to go outside of his frame to go and pull it in. Toughness, this guy, he's a battler, man. Even when he's overmatched in the run game, he still exudes toughness and gives you everything he has. And if you're getting a guy from Wisconsin, he's going to block in the run game because that's what they do at Wisconsin. They run the damn football. Run blocking ability, I put down in my notes, will block. Again, I keep mentioning this Western Michigan game from 2016. But like I said, I thought he was the best. It was, to me, his best game of his career, and I thought he was the best player on the field in that game. And P.J. Fleck, the head coach of Western Michigan, even said, that guy's a hell of a football player, and he was one of the best players out there in that particular game. And remember, Western Michigan came into that game undefeated at 12-0. So Wisconsin was able to take them down, and a huge part of why was Troy Fumagalli. Pass blocking ability, he competes as a pass blocker. Not as good in the pass game as a blocker as he is in the run game, but I watched him in 2017 versus Maryland and Miami in the bowl game, and I thought he gave maximum effort in those games and gives his quarterback a chance to step up in the pocket and deliver the football. Awareness, really solid awareness. He knows who to block, when to block them, both in the run game and the pass game. Versatility. They all set him off the line of scrimmage. He's in line. They use him as a wham blocker, as a puller, and he also is in the backfield as an H-back. So you get a ton of versatility with a guy like Troy Fumagalli. Collegiate production, really solid throughout his career. Talked about him having over 500 yards receiving in the last 2 years, in each of the last 2 years. Again, that's a tough feat for a run-dominant offense. But what you get off that run is play-action fake, and the linebacker sucking up, and a guy like Troy Fumagalli is able to take full advantage of those opportunities. Stamina and red zone threat, both are solid. Neither wow you, especially the red zone threat. Only 7 career touchdowns. I saw drops versus Western Michigan and Miami in the end zone. I'd like to see him clean that up. For a guy that has as good a hands as Troy Fumagalli does, that's unacceptable. I need you to catch the football. And it was just a simple lapse in concentration. And his quarterback in that game, I want to say it was Houston, he only had 1 incompletion in that game, and the 1 incompletion was a Troy Fumagalli drop wide open in the back of the end zone. So I just need him to catch the football. And I know he's capable. So only 7 career touchdowns. He's a better tight end than that, and I expect him to prove that out at the next level. Here's my one worry for him in Denver. And I struggle back and forth whether this guy was a double or a triple. To me, he's really a triple. But because of the histories of tight ends in Denver, you haven't had any success since Julius Thomas. And you lucked up on Julius Thomas. I don't think you even knew what you were getting in Julius Thomas when he blew up. And some of that, people would argue, was Peyton Manning getting him the football. He never was the same after Peyton Manning. Nonetheless, you've had problems. Whether it was Jeff Hireman, who I thought was going to be a really good tight end for you, or Jake Butt, all these guys struggling with injuries since coming to Denver. This guy's coming off of an injury. I don't know if I have the confidence that the Broncos are going to get the most out of this guy, because whether it's injuries or just lack of opportunities, whatever the case may be, Denver Broncos tight ends haven't gotten to the next level and excelled. So I'm a little nervous for Troy Fumagalli, but if anyone can buck the trend, and maybe Jake Butt comes back healthy and he's that guy, maybe Fumagalli is able to get healthy and he's that guy, I think it's Troy Fumagalli. I love what this guy brings to the table. I'm just nervous about the Broncos in tight ends, and because of that, in the 5th round, 156th overall selection, tight end out of Wisconsin, Troy Fumagalli, for me, is So we go to the 6th round, 183rd overall selection. Offensive lineman out of Arizona State, Sam Jones, is the selection. So let's get into Sam Jones quickly. I did his artwork well before I got his official numbers, so the 290 isn't accurate. 6'5", 305. Now, he did play at Arizona at 290. He put on some weight for the combine, wanted to show the evaluators that, hey, I can put on weight and I can keep on weight. We'll see if he's able to keep that weight on. But one of the issues with Sam Jones is his inability to keep the weight on and be a little bit more stout at the point of attack. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he is a quintessential Denver Bronco type of offensive lineman. A guy that in that stretch zone run blocking scheme can get out and get to the reach block and make some things happen. So from that standpoint, he does bring that to the table. 6'5", 305, 28 reps of 2 1/4. I'll just give you some of the background here. Foot injury cost him 6 games in 2016. Has started at left tackle, right tackle, and at left guard. One start at both left and right tackle, but the bulk of his starts in his career, 23 of them, come at left guard. Shorter arms projects him as a center at the next level, more so than a guard. 31-inch arms, extremely short, especially for a guy that's 6'5". You're expecting him to have vines for arms. He's only got 31-inch arms, which really projects him more so as a center, more so than a guard at the next level. We'll see what the Broncos decide to do with him. Nonetheless, we start with his pros quickly. Athleticism, 5'3", 240, but he's much quicker than I expected. Like I said, he's one of those guys that can get to the scoop block, can get to the reach block a little bit more than I thought he was going to be capable of doing. Technique-wise, he's really technically sound. He doesn't lose battles because of technique. We'll talk about why he loses battles a little bit later on, but nonetheless, balance, he has really solid balance. Not a guy that's on the ground or knocked off balance very easily. Again, when he's knocked off balance, it's not because of a technique issue or a technical issue. It's because of other issues and factors. You go to his redirect. He actually changes directions really well and able to redirect defensive linemen as well. Toughness, he's very, very physical. One of those guys that plays up to the whistle. Pass blocking ability, I think he's lagging behind his run blocking ability, but both of them were able to clear the positives. His finish is nasty. He's a nasty guy. Wants to get into the grill of a defensive lineman, wants to pancake him, put a little syrup on top, wants to take a guy, drive him, and it's not good enough to just drive him to the sideline. He wants to drive him out of bounds 3 yards into the bench. He's that kind of nasty. I like that about Sam Jones. Awareness, I put down in my notes, peels off of one defender to block MDM, most dangerous man. So he's aware, head on a swivel, sees what's going on, picks up one guy, sees a free hitter coming, and is able to pick him up and get rid of him. Spatial awareness, does a bang-up job of hitting moving targets. So when you ask him to pull and get out on the perimeter, he's a guy that does a really good job of hitting a guy that's trying to dart in and out, slip a block, maybe get underneath. He hits moving targets very well while he's on the move, which is very tough for offensive linemen. Looking for work, head on a swivel versus Colorado, blocks 2 guys, similar to what I just said about awareness. Picks up one guy on a blitz, and then another guy comes late, and he's able to pick him off as well. Double teams, tremendous power and quickness on double teams. Does a really good job of just putting a jolt into a guy that's being blocked and just giving him something in his ribs and letting him know something, and then getting from that block up to the second level. Does a really good job of doing that. Pulling, I put down in my notes, pulls with purpose. Does a really good job of getting out of his stance, redirecting, changing directions, and getting up the field. And when he comes out of his stance and he gets up the field, he's pulling with a purpose of getting to the second level and getting on a defender, not just running around out in space. You see a lot of guys pull, get to the second level, and block no one, and they're just running. I can't stand it. Go put your body on a body and be productive in the play, and that's what Sam Jones does the vast majority of times when he's asked to pull. Availability, missed time in 2016. I talked about that at the top of his breakdown. Missed 6 games in 2016, but still was able to play in most of his games. And remember, we're talking about a redshirt junior here, so he came out early and for the most part played in most of his career at Arizona State. You go to his cons, his measurables. You love the 6'5", but the 305 isn't what you're ideally looking for, and the 31-inch arms isn't what you're looking for. So he lacks ideal length and girth. When I saw him lose, when I saw him get pushed around, it was because he didn't have enough weight in his trunks. He didn't have enough sand in his trunks to stand his ground, which leads us to his next con, anchor. He's got solid anchor, except when his length betrays him. I think sometimes his length allows defenders with longer reach to get into his body before he can get into theirs, which knocks him off balance. And then what you would like to see him in that situation, okay, you got me off balance, but I've got enough in the trunks to stand my ground, dig my heels in the dirt, and stop you from driving me all the way back to the quarterback. Well, when you're 290, 295 pounds, and I got the length advantage, and I get up under your pads, and I got you on skates, hard for you to stop the damage that I'm doing to you when you don't have enough girth, when you don't have enough mass to stop me. That's where he struggles mightily. And so that's something he's going to have to get better at. Stronger, more physical, a little bit bigger as a blocker. He can't change his length. He's got 31-inch arms. It is what it is. But what he can do is get to 310 and stay at 310 and be a little bit more physical and start at the point of attack. And when guys try to drive him back, be able to arch that back, bow it, and say no, okay? You've gotten far as you're going to get and stop the pocket from collapsing. But nonetheless, I thought he was really solid. And if you're looking for a guy that can move out in space, Sam Jones is your guy here in the 6th round, 183rd overall selection. Offensive lineman out of Arizona State, Sam Jones is a... Moving right along as we get to the second to last pick in this Broncos draft, 6th round, 217th overall selection, linebacker out of Washington, Keishawn Bierria is the pick. So quickly on Keishawn Bierria, 6 feet, 230 pounds, 21 reps of 2 1/4. Career stats, 7.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 19.5 tackles for loss, 4 PBUs. Never missed a game in his collegiate career. 5 fumble recoveries in 2016, so a guy that was always around the football in 2016. And that's what you like. Again, like Josey Jewell, good things happen to people that are around the football. So you get to his measurable, 6 feet, 230. That's not the greatest size in the world. But again, in this day and age in the NFL, smaller linebackers equal faster linebackers, which equals guys that can run with tight ends and running backs. I don't know if that's necessarily who Keishawn Bierria is, however. So we're going to see what he brings to the table. Speed, 4.74. Again, that's not a bad time. That's not a great time. If you're 230, I expect you to be a sub 4.7 linebacker because you're already lacking size. So what are you bringing to the table? You better be bringing speed. Well, 4.74 isn't speed. It isn't great speed at the linebacker position from a 230-pound linebacker. If this guy were 240 pounds, then 4.74 wouldn't be that bad. You know, but at 230 pounds, I need you to be a sub 4.7. So that's a little off-putting there. But athleticism, he shows it. Again, when he's unblocked, he's a guy that can get to the football. Acceleration, it's solid, not going to wow you. Redirect is solid. Shed and slip, great at slipping blocks. Shedding, not so much. He's a guy that if you put a body on him, you can pretty much wipe him out of a play. But if he's able to beat you to a spot, or he's able to get there and then slip under your block or over top of your block, he's really good at doing that and getting to a ball carrier. Taking on blocks, he'll take on a block, but again, he's not going to win that block necessarily. Tackling ability is in the negative comments, so we'll come back to that. Zone coverage ability, I have him as barely making it as a positive there. I don't think he's a guy that you want on the field on third downs. I don't think he's a guy that excels in passing situations. Blitzing capabilities versus Washington State in 2016, sidesteps a running back that's trying to cut block him for a sack. I think he's got the ability to blitz, and like I talked about earlier with Josey Jewell, with the guys that you have up front getting to the quarterback, it might not be that bad to have a guy like Keishawn Bierria on the field in a blitzing capacity. More so than Josey Jewell, I think this is a guy that is a little bit more adept at blitzing and getting home. So we'll see. Range, 6.5 in terms of what I rated him. in range. And he can run, but again, I was expecting more out of him for his size, and I didn't get that. But in any event, let's go to his cons quickly. Awareness. He's a guy that isn't instinctual. He doesn't see it before it happens. He's the polar opposite of Josey Jewell, who identifies things before it happens. You can tell he studies film and knows what's happening. Keishawn Bierria needs to see it first. Then he reacts to it. By then, it's too late, and he's not fast enough to overcome being late to the party. So his awareness is something that I think he needs to watch more tape and be a little bit more in tune to what's going on, because he's not fast enough to overcome being to the party late. Tackling ability, I was not in love with him as a tackler. Throws his body around but doesn't wrap up enough for me. He's one of those guys who wants to come in and be physical with his shoulder, and he needs to wrap up a little bit more and be more of a guy that's just getting people on the ground. Man coverage ability, I don't like him in man coverage. I think guys can run by him, and he doesn't anticipate well enough what the running back is going to do. So again, he doesn't have a step to give to guys that are faster than him. So I just don't think he's a three-down linebacker. I think right now his best bet is making his team on specials and then proving to the coaching staff that he has some kind of value in first and second down situations. But we'll see what happens with Keishawn Bierria, 6th round, 217th overall selection. Solid selection. Now, don't get me wrong. This guy brings some things to the table, played at a high level at Washington, but I don't love him. But in any event, you know, linebacker out of Washington, Keishawn Bierria is. Now, this, however, is a player that I do like, a guy that I think has not only a legit chance of making this roster, but a guy that has a legit chance to make an impact on this Broncos roster. In the 7th round, 226th overall selection, running back out of Arkansas, David Williams is the selection. I really like this guy a lot. He's a height, weight, speed running back, and these are the type of guys you take. Guys that didn't have a ton of production in college, guys that may have had some injuries throughout their collegiate career, but you know the talent is there. You can see it. Guys that work out well. Look, you're not doing anything but tossing a 7th round flyer. If the guy hits, great. If he doesn't, it's a 7th round pick. I love these kind of guys in the 7th round, and I think you might have gotten a 7th round gem here in David Williams. 6 feet, 224 pounds, so a little bit bigger of a back, bigger than what you're used to in Denver. So I like that. A little change of pace from the 5'8", 5'9" guys you've been drafting, and obviously Devontae Booker a little bit bigger at around 5'11" or so. But this guy's a bigger back. So is Freeman. So you're going to the bigger 6-foot back, and this guy's a similar size, 224 here. So I love this kind of back in Denver. 21 reps of 2 1/4, 4.5, 240 at 224 pounds. Again, similar to what you're getting out of Royce Freeman, another guy that can run. And so that's a bigger back. I like that. And when you watch him, there's something there to David Williams. 21 reps of 2 1/4, as I mentioned. Did miss 8 games over 4 years at Arkansas, 4 in 14, another 4 in 2016. 2017 was his most productive season in college, so that's a good thing. He's playing his best football at the right time. He's on the ascension, and that's what you want. In 2017, 117 carries, 656 yards for 8 touchdowns. All of those stats career highs for David Williams. 2 receiving touchdowns in 2017 as well. 15 career total touchdowns. So the light bulb was starting to come on. He got more opportunities in 2017, and he took full advantage of those opportunities. Talked about his speed at 4.52, which is good speed for a guy his size. He's got really good quickness for a guy his size, for an upright guy. Same with acceleration. It really surprised me a lot. Got some agility, not the greatest in the world. I think Royce Freeman, a lot more agile than he is, but nonetheless, got a little something to him. Vision, quality vision to exploit cutbacks. I think if you're looking for his best game and what's going to show you, if you really want the essence of what David Williams brings to the table, watch him in Missouri versus the Cats in 2017. Watch him versus Mizzou in 2017. That's who David Williams is in a nutshell. Make you miss. His first touchdown run versus Missouri, and I think he had like 3 scores in that game, was phenomenal. His ability to make guys miss on that particular play from a bigger back, you don't see that very often. Contact balance, it's solid. It's not the greatest in the world, but he does power through contact, get you extra yards. Toughness and durability, receiving ability, all of those are solid. None of them are great. They're all solid attributes. However, pass pro, I like him as a pass protector. And that's why I said this guy has a legitimate shot to make the roster. And as I look at the running backs on this Denver Broncos roster, you got D'Angelo Henderson, who you drafted a couple of years ago in the later rounds. Royce Freeman obviously going to make this roster. Devontae Booker, I think, still has a spot on this roster. I think David Williams could beat out a D'Angelo Henderson for the third running back on this roster. I don't know if the Broncos intend on keeping 4. I don't know what the history is with L.A.B. and them keeping running backs on the roster, but if they're only keeping 3, I can see Williams not only making this roster, but having an impact on this roster. In pass protection and awareness, I got knows who to block and when to get out into the route as an underneath option. So this is the kind of guy you're looking for when you're looking for a third down back. A guy that's going to stick his nose in there, be tough and physical as a protector, know who to block, when to step up, but then also knows, all right, my presence isn't necessary here. Let me get out into the route and give my quarterback another eligible. Versatility, he's solid because, again, he can go 3 downs and be a third down back for you. Patience, Missouri, again, is where you need to look. I watched him in 3 games versus LSU, versus Auburn, and versus Missouri, all in 2017. Patience, he exudes it in that Missouri game. And then leg drive versus Auburn, he moves the pile literally. Obviously, he gets help from his mates along the offensive line, but he kept his feet, kept the leg drive going, and they literally moved that pile about 5 or 6 yards after he was pretty much corralled. He was able to keep the legs going and move that pile, so he offers you some leg drive as well. You go to his negatives quickly. Snap volume, again, 117 snaps or touches was the most he's ever had in his career, so that tells you that he was never the guy really until his last season at Arkansas, and so he split time. But you're not going to ask him to come in and be that guy necessarily. Now, if some things happen, injuries take effect, and he's got to be the guy, we'll see what happens. But right now, that's just not who he is. And when he was given opportunities in previous years, injuries set in. So we don't know what he is from a snap volume type of guy. Ball carry, ball security and carry. 5 career fumbles, lost 3 of them. 2 of them come in 17. I watched him versus LSU, and he just coughed it up. So that's something that he's got to work on. For a guy that didn't touch it a ton in college, 5 fumbles, way too many. 2 in 2017, where you were given the opportunity. That's a problem. I need him to protect the football a little bit better. But nonetheless, love this second-round selection here. And I'm excited for the opportunity that he's going to be given in Denver. And I think he can not only crack this roster, but I think he could have an impact as a guy that can help you right away in the 7th round, 226th overall selection, running back out of Arkansas. David Williams completes this Broncos draft as a So you look at the Broncos draft as a whole, I thought it was an exceptional haul by the Denver Broncos. Elway, he did it again, really bringing in some guys that I think fit some roles on this team to a T. The thing that makes teams successful is being able to identify what players fit your team and your system and your scheme and what you like to do. And I think the Broncos do a really good job of identifying that. And I think they did it again in this particular draft. Let's take a look at what they were able to do from a score standpoint in their 2018 draft haul. So that's going to do it for the Denver Broncos and their 2018 NFL draft. A solid triple for the Denver Broncos in this draft. As I thought they did a phenomenal job of addressing some needs, but getting the best players available on the board at the time of their selections at some positions where they could use some help. I think the Bradley Chubb pick was absolute highway robbery. You stole there. I think Royce Freeman is going to be an exceptional back for that system in Denver, exactly what the doctor ordered after moving on from C.J. Anderson. You look at what you did at the receiver position, not once, but twice in this draft, getting size and a little bit of speed in Sutton, but then doubling down and getting an exceptional route runner, a guy that can separate in DaeSean Hamilton later on in the draft. The tight end position has been a source of frustration with all the injuries. You get another guy to add to that mix in Troy Fumagalli that I think can come in and maybe buck that trend of late at the tight end position. No more Virgil Green. In comes Troy Fumagalli. I think he can help. And then you look at some of the other pieces that you got in this draft, and I think like Isaac Yiadom, all of those guys that I think can come in and help and have a chance to crack the roster, like guys late in the draft like a Sam Jones or even a David Williams. So we'll see what happens with this Broncos draft. Really like what they were able to do, but I'm your man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you check out the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. Make sure you check out the website. There's a lot of content, whether you're checking out my podcast, the Louie Tee Network podcast, that's available everywhere, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, on Google Music, on the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. So check that out, and also check out and subscribe if you haven't already done so to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. I'm your man, Louie Tee, signing off. Remember, we're changing the game one video at a time. I'll see you next time. Plenty more of these to come, so keep watching. Have a good one.
Louie Tee Network.